So I'm Sung Kim from CodeChain, and today I'll be presenting about MakerDAO, the DAI stablecoin system. So to start off, to explain what MakerDAO is, it's basically a protocol behind DAI, and DAI is basically the coin, a stable digital asset, and this is also known as stablecoins right now. And they're a cryptocurrency that maintains the one-to-one ratio dollar to DAI, and they're able to do this with various mechanisms that's embedded within the MakerDAO protocol. And DAI is unique because it's not backed by the USD, but it's actually backed by Ethereum. And since Ethereum is involved, you don't have to worry about the third party simply claiming to have the necessary collateral to back up the actual DAI that you're generating. But many people would actually worry about, isn't Ethereum also volatile as well? So we'll get into that in the later slides. The MakerDAO project started back all the way in 2015, but they did not conduct an ICO. They privately sold MKR Tokens instead to fund development costs all this time, and in 2018 they finally launched the DAI stablecoin. So what's the purpose of DAI? Right now, cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and everything else is too volatile to be trusted, and we cannot use it as everyday currency. But DAI isn't the first stablecoin that was released. There were other works such as Tether, TrueUSD, etc. But the problem with those coins is they do not allow users to redeem their coins for any regulatory reasons. And because of that, we cannot trust that whether these companies are creating artificial inflation from the back or not. So who's using DAI? This is actually one of the most successful stablecoin projects that's built on Ethereum, and I think this is marked in around May 2019, and they had more than 77 million DAI circulating in the system. So in total, at that time, they held about 2% of entire Ethereum. So how is DAI generated? First of all, they have these, Maker has these special, unique smart contracts known as collateralized debt positions, and I'll be calling them CDPs for the rest of this presentation. Anyone can generate DAI as long as they have Ether to back up, or Ether to use as collateral. Basically, they need collateral assets. So a collateral asset is a digital asset that is decentralized, and this is the official definition. A collateral asset is a digital asset that the decentralized maker governance process has input into the system. So basically right now they accept only Ethereum as collateral. And CDPs, they hold this collateral asset and they allow the user to generate DAI, but doing so will create debt. And this debt is locked within the CDP until the user pays it back pays back the equivalent amount that they took out. So step one, let's say there's a user, they basically send a transaction to Maker and they create a CDP. And then they send a transaction to fund it with the right amount of collateral that will be used to generate DAI. And here they say right collateral because in the future they plan on allowing users to use other things as collateral. But right now only Ether is accepted. So one needs to collateralize more Ether than the amount of DAI being taken out. So for example, if you deposit one Ethereum that's worth, let's just say $150, you can take out up to around 100 DAI, because they currently enforce a collateralization rate of 150%. So if you take out 100 DAI and the Ether price drops below 150, then your CDP will be closed forcefully. So this is a mechanism that just makes sure that there's always enough capital that's locked in the MakerDAO ecosystem. So in step two, they basically you after you put in you lock in the Ethereum inside the CDP, the CDP user sends a transaction to retrieve the DAI from the CDP. So basically, you can take out 100 DAI as explained in the previous slide. And once DAI is taken out, you're considered to be in debt. And if you want to retrieve the collateral which you offered up, you have to pay back 100 DAI to get this back. So yeah, step 3, if you want to retrieve the collateral, the debt must be paid back. And there's also something called the stability fee that will continuously add up over time. And stability fees must be paid in Maker coins. Once everything is paid off, including the stability fee and everything, the CDP can be closed and the collateral can be retrieved by the user. So just to give examples, to clear things up, this is the first example. Let's say the price of 1 Ether is $150 and you deposit 1 Ether into the CDP and you generate 50 DAI. That means your CDP is collateralized at 300%. And that means you should be pretty safe as long as the Ether's price doesn't drop under $75. And MakerDAO requires a collateralization rate of 150% at minimum. And let's say the annual stability fee is around 3.5%. So if a year has passed, you will need to pay 51.75 DAI in order to retrieve your collateral, which was 1 Ether. Example 2, this is the same as before. Let's say Ether is $150, you deposit 1 Ether into a CDP, and this time you want to take out 100 DAI. And this means that the CDP is collateralized at 150%. And let's say the price of Ether drops to $100, and your CDP is basically now... I meant now here. This is a typo here. Your CDP is now under collateralized by $50. So a third party will realize that you're basically under collateralized and they will liquidate your CDP on your behalf. And these third parties will have ways to profit from your stuff being liquidated. Example 3, this is use same stuff, 1 Ether, $150, and you deposit 1 Ether into CDP, and this time let's say you take out 75 DAI, and it's collateralized at 200%. And if the price of Ether goes up to $300, now you're collateralized at 400%, and basically you can even now safely generate more DAI if Ether's price goes up, basically. So how's the system kept under control? There are protocols. The MakerDAO protocol makes sure that everything stays stable by something called Maker Tokens, and token holders can influence parts of the MakerDAO protocol in general. So they decide things like how much should the annual stability fee be, how much collateral should there be in each CDP, if there's any unforeseeable disaster that happens in the price of Ethereum, let's say the price falls very drastically, then everything needs to be shut down immediately to prevent further damage. So the role of these Maker tokens, one of the roles is they're used to pay off stability fees, and each time a user pays the stability fee, a dollar equivalent amount of Maker coin is purchased off the market. So Maker it acts as a deflationary currency. Price stability mechanisms and risk parameters. There are things called risk parameters, and they're parameters that are in the CDP, and each risk parameter is unique to each CDP, and they're controlled directly by the Maker holders, and one Maker token equals one vote. So a debt ceiling is one of the risk parameters. It limits the amount of debt that can be created with CDP. So for example, if the debt ceiling is set as 50 million DAI, that means only 50 million DAI can be generated against the Ether in the entire system. This is another risk parameter, stability fee. So MakerDAO, you can think of it as a bank that gives loans with an interest rate, and this interest rate is basically the stability fee as mentioned before. So if stability fee is low, people would want to make more loans and buy and lock up more of their Ethereum. And if the stability fee is high, then more people would be less likely to borrow from them, and they will close their CDPs. And this is one of the core mechanisms of how MakerDAO, this is how they maintain their correct target price. And in the future, Maker plans on introducing something called the DAI savings rate, and this will allow DAI holders to lock up their DAI and earn interest. So the DAI savings rate, this is also one of the price stability mechanisms that Maker is planning to use. And as mentioned, they help maintain the market price of DAI at the target price. And this affects how much DAI holders can earn over their holdings over time. And so let's say if the price of DAI is above $1, the DAI savings rate will go down, and this will decrease demand. And conversely, if DAI price is below $1, then the DAI savings rate will increase, and this will ultimately boost demand. But yeah, however, right now they don't have the DAI savings rate. It's not available yet, and this is and in the end, it won't be available for single collateral DAI anyways. And I'll explain what single collateral DAI means later, but basically this means that there's only one collateral type available for DAI right now, which is Ether. So how about in case of emergencies? Like let's say, what if MakerDAO has less collateral than it needs to, due to Ether price going down drastically, as mentioned before. If this kind of stuff happens, then basically Maker coins are issued, and they're sold on the market in order to pay back the DAI holders. So this is why Maker holders need to be careful about what the collateralization ratio will be and how they will manage the general governance of the entire MakerDAO platform. So if things go like too south, if things get too bad, then in order to enforce the target price, there is something called the emergency shutdown to completely stop the Maker platform, and this will ensure that everyone will receive their net value of assets that they are entitled to. Risk parameters. Wait, I think. Oh yeah, I think there's an error with the slides, but I'll fix that later. And wait, what the heck? So this entire MakerDAO system, one of the things that could happen is there could be a positive Ether feedback loop. So what if Ether's price goes up? And we can think of this scenario. If Alex opens up a CDP at 150% collateralization ratio, and he waits for Ether's price to go up, and once Ether's price actually goes up by 50%, he generates even more DAI without decreasing the collateralization ratio. So with this new DAI, he buys more Ether, and he adds this Ether into the same CDP, and he is further protected from any market downturns. So he can basically keep doing this over and over until as long as Ether's price goes up for free, basically. And multi-collateral DAI, as explained before, single collateral DAI means that only Ether is available as collateral, but DAO is currently planning on introducing multi-collateral DAI so that any ERC20 tokens can be used to collateralize their CDPs. That's all I have for MakerDAO to do.